and good evening, everyone. Welcome to our webinar series for Ukraine. We've been doing this for probably over 11 months. And as you all know, we've focused on topics related to autism and to pediatric mental health. We have today Dr. Fung, who will be talking about neurodiversity in the workplace. But before I make the introduction, I want to thank everyone for attending. And we have today Irena, who will be doing the interpretation to Russian, and Dmitry, who will be doing the interpretation to Ukrainian. If you look our website, we have webinars that we've done over the last year, and you can access them and listen to them. Next month, in early April, we have a topic that's related to speech and language. We will be posting the information, the exact date, in the next few days. We've been doing these webinars now once a month, mostly the first Wednesday of the month. We would like everyone to provide input at the end. So we will have a survey in the chat that people can click on and provide feedback and suggestions about topics. And today's topic is based on the suggestion of one of the previous participants. If you have questions, we will have time at the end. Please click on the question and answer section and enter your question, and we'll answer it at the end. We have Dana here who would do the translation if the question is in Russian or Ukrainian. Now, I would like to introduce Dr. Lawrence Fung, who is an assistant professor in the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences at Stanford University. He is the director of the Stanford Neurodiversity Project, director of the Neurodiversity Clinic, and a principal investigator at his lab. His work focuses on autism and neurodiversity, traverses from multimodal neuroimaging studies to new conceptualization of neurodiversity and its application to clinical, education, and employment setting. His lab advances the understanding of neural bases of human social, communicative, and cognitive function by using imaging techniques and bioanalytic technologies. Using community-based participatory research approach, his team devises and implements novel intervention to improve the lives of neurodiverse individuals by maximizing their potential and productivity. I've been working with Dr. Fung for maybe 10 years, 12 years, Lawrence. So it's been great to see his work growing, and I'm excited today to get an update on his work. And Dr. Fung also hosts a neurodiversity summit or a conference in the fall of every year, and hopefully he has a date this year at this time to share with everyone. Again, Dr. Fung, thank you again for your willingness to do a presentation here, and you have the floor now.
Thank you, Dr. Harding, for the warm welcome and invitation. It's been a really tremendous pleasure to have the opportunity to work with Dr. Harding for 14 years, since 2009. Today I am going to talk about neurodiversity, and especially I'm going to be focusing on some applications in the employment setting. Can you all see the slides okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I got into the field of autism because of my son's diagnosis of autism, or also some how many years? Is over 15 years. Yeah, 15 years ago. And after that, I started working in the field of autism, first more as a learner, and eventually I got the training and opportunity to do some research and some work around it. This is my disclosure slide. And today I'm going to be talking about neurodiversity, as I mentioned before, what it is, and also try to describe to you how we understand neurodiversity and conceptualize in a way that can be making it possible to uh, have actions over what we are trying to develop as not only a concept but something that can be done for the well-being of neurodiverse people. And I'll tell you some work that we are doing in the Stanford Neurodiversity Project, and I'll raise a question on how we can work together to maximize the potential of neurodiversity. What is neurodiversity? Neurodiversity is really more of a concept that regards individuals with differences in their brain function and their behavioral traits as part of normal variation in the human population. So when we talk about neurodiverse conditions, a lot of the time we refer to autism, ADHD, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, as well as specific learning disorders such as dyslexia. But there are also other conditions that would fall under neurodiverse conditions, including some motor disorders, such as tic disorder, and also neurologic conditions such as epilepsy, as well as psychiatric conditions. It is very common to see neurodiverse conditions. It is probably the largest minority group in the world. And just to look at the first three, autism has a prevalence of 2.3%. So you're going to see one person on the autism spectrum in every couple of classrooms. Dyslexia is much higher. The prevalence is 13 to 14%. And ADHD is somewhere in between 5 to 7%. When we're thinking about all of these conditions, one thing that we often want to understand is where does the individual person fall in terms of the traits, different kinds of traits that person may have. And when we try to understand traits, oftentimes we use the bell-shaped curve. So just like any traits, like how tall a person is, how smart a person is in terms of IQ, there is a distribution. The middle 68% here would be the people that are representing average trait for that particular trait. And on the right side will be considered to be above average, and on the left side is below average. And IQ is one of the most common ways of characterizing intelligence. And right off the bat, I would say this is somewhat kind of not comprehensive. So I will tell you a little bit about why I say that. And basically, for someone that has an IQ of 85 to 115, the person will be considered as having average intelligence. On the other hand, if they have a IQ of 130, they will be considered as pretty smart. 145 and up will be at the genius level. And someone that has an IQ of lower than 70 will be considered as having intellectual disability. I say this is a not very comprehensive, actually rather imperfect way of characterizing intelligence, because there are many other domains of intelligence that are not uh, taken into account. So Howard Gardner at Harvard University in the last quarter century have been telling us about how he conceptualizes the intelligence. And basically, in the IQ test, we are going to have uh, a characterization of the visual, spatial abilities, verbal linguistic abilities, and logical mathematical abilities. The IQ test does not tell us anything about the other domains, such as musical rhythmic, bodily kinesthetic, or athletic ability, naturalistic. Interpersonal abilities are abilities to relate with other people. Intrapersonal would be ability to understand self. And existential is the ability to understand your own existence, the universe's existence, kind of more big picture understanding of existence. And one can also imagine that all of us have some level of ability in all of these domains. And we can conceptualize the multiple intelligence profile. And a profile for multiple intelligence can be illustrated by understanding like someone that we all know. Albert Einstein is the genius of the genius. So let's look at his multiple intelligence profile. His musical rhythmic ability is almost above average. He played the violin, visual spatial, he's way up there at the genius level. Verbal linguistic, actually not so high. He didn't start speaking until 4 years old. Logical mathematical, he is really in his own league, in his own island. Naturalistic, average, and look at intrapersonal and interpersonal. He actually struggled quite a bit. Bodily kinesthetic, average. At least he ride a bicycle on time. So one thing that you can see from here is that the genius of the genius, Einstein, is good at a couple of domains of intelligence, but he's not good at everything. And in some areas, he actually struggled quite a bit. However, we remember him as someone that changed the world for the good by what he is very good at. So a lot of people are kind of like him. Here's a partial list, and this is Isaac Newton. Albert Einstein is Alan Turing, who cracked the Enigma, arguably invented the first computer and stopped World War II. This is Nikola Tesla, and this is the guy that owns Tesla now, Elon Musk. And here are some mathematicians and some biologists here. This is Benjamin Banneker, who is the first African-American scientist, and philosopher Immanuel Kant. This is Charles Darwin, who is the father of evolution. Barbara McClintock is the Nobel Prize winning geneticist. And this is Diane Fossey, who taught us everything about gorillas. Temple Grandin, most famous autistic individual that's written a lot of different concepts about autism. And on top of that, he is also a prominent animal science scientist. This is Greta Thunberg, who is the arguably the most effective environmental activist. She is also on the autism spectrum. And we have some artists here. Michelangelo, Andy Warhol is the father of pop art. This is Wassily Kandinsky, another painter, Pierre Mondrian, Joseph Corel, Stephen Wilshire. Stephen Wilshire is a really amazing artist and draftsman. He can ride a helicopter up the sky and memorize the entire city. And then after taking the helicopter ride for 15-20 minutes, he can draw the entire city in detail in front of like tens of thousands of people. And he has done that like many times in many cities in the world. He is also on the autism spectrum. He got his diagnosis of autism at 3 years old. And here is Amadeus Mozart, another musician, Glenn Gould, and here's Lewis Carroll. Here are some writers here. Lewis Carroll is the writer author for Alice in the Wonderland, and we have Hans Christian Andersen, a famous poet. This is Alfredi Jelinek, who is a 2004 Nobel Prize winner in literature. And she is also one of the 4 patients of Hans Asperger that's described in 1944. Here are some entertainers who are also on the autism spectrum. This is Andy Kaufman, Dan Aykroyd, Susan Boyle. This is Daryl Hannah, and this is Tim Burton, Jim Henson, and this is Satoshi Tajiri, who created the Pokemon. I don't know about Eastern Europe, but Pokemon is very popular in children that's in the US and Asia. So this guy is on the autism spectrum, and he created all of these really amazing characters that capture the attention of really many children. And here's Mike Berry, who is a neurologist and American investor who is also on the autism spectrum. And one thing that you can see is that these people represent many different fields in the sciences, the arts, and also one thing that is in common is that they are all very passionate about what they are doing, and because of that, they spend a lot of time getting to be the top of their field, and in turn, they are really making a lot of contributions to the society. This series of talk is really more about autism, but very quickly I am going to tell you that like these individuals have ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and basically many people on the autism spectrum also have ADHD. These people probably don't have autism diagnosis though. And some of these people include Alexander Bell, who invented the telephone, and here's Thomas Edison, who is also an inventor, invented the light bulb and many other things. And this is President John F. Kennedy. And this is Sir Richard Branson, who is a very successful businessman and also the founder of the Virgin Group. Michael Phelps won more Olympic gold medals than anyone. And this is Simone Biles, who is an American gymnast. She also won one of the Olympic gold medals. And we have also some people in the entertainment industry and journalism. And I'm not going to say their names for the sake of time. And this list of individuals don't have autism, they have dyslexia. And you know, this is George Washington. This is Picasso, who is a very famous painter. This is Charles Schwab. Charles Schwab is a very famous investor in the United States. This is Dr. Carol Greider, also Nobel Prize winner for discovering the enzyme telomerase. And these are two physicians. One is a psychiatrist, Stuart Udofsky, who is the chairman of the psychiatry department in Baylor College of Medicine. And this is Toby Cosgrove, the current president and CEO of the Cleveland Clinic. This is Anderson Cooper. This is Sir Jackie Stewart, who won more Formula One races than anyone. And some other entertainers, Jay Leno, Whoopi Goldberg, Robin Williams, and Cher. So all of them share the diagnosis of dyslexia. I'm not sure exactly if George Washington was told about his diagnosis, but basically from what is described about him, he fits the diagnosis of dyslexia. And one thing that you also can look at is that dyslexia is a condition that is defined by the difficulty in reading and writing and so forth. And especially on the reading, for people that are needing to enter professions that requires a lot of reading, it must be like almost impossible, you would think. But these people, these prominent physicians and a Nobel Prize winner, they have to read a lot. But even though they need to read a lot, and even though they actually have intrinsically challenges in reading, they make their challenges their strengths. So basically, what we can say is that from all of these people with autism, ADHD, and dyslexia, they can make make neurodiversity a competitive advantage. So now I'm going to talk about the strength-based model of neurodiversity. It is very different from the traditional model of disability or the medical model, in that the medical model is focused on what the diagnosis may be. The strength-based model is about what the person can do. And we have to talk about some of these things. I'll talk a little bit more in the next few slides. So for example, for people on the autism spectrum, when someone is doing something over and over again and is not getting anywhere, you may call it perseveration. However, if you see a very good results, you're not going to call it perseveration, you're going to call it persistence or even perseverance. People on the autism spectrum are not drawn to see big picture. However, at the same time, they are very detail oriented. A lot of people on the autism spectrum are especially suitable for doing work that's requiring details, such as like programming. In programming, there's a lot of debugging of the programs and codes that's needed. If you are only seeing the big picture, you're not going to be able to be a very good programmer because you won't be able to get the details. Another challenge that people on the autism spectrum has is they have fewer interests. But when they're interested in something, they're going to get to the very depth of the knowledge. They may not take other people's perspectives as easily, but at the same time, they're very concrete and honest. They interact socially differently compared to the neurotypical individuals. At the same time, they are very loyal. So you can see that the characteristics of autism has not changed. It is one list of characteristics of autism that can be both challenges and strengths at the same time. So what can make it more strengths is really dependent on the environment. When the environment is able to provide the resources and understanding, um, then the autistic individuals will be more able to use their characteristics for the good. I'm going to skip some slides on ADHD and dyslexia, but basically, very quickly, ADHD is very similar to autism in that is one list of characteristics that can be both strengths and challenges. Dyslexia is two groups of distinct challenges and strengths. They are not the same characteristics that can be both strengths and challenges. So the conceptualization is a little bit different. And how do we use the strength-based model? But before we use the strength-based model, let's understand what are the components. The key components are positive psychology, positive psychiatry, theory of multiple intelligence that I already talked about, the Chickering 7 vectors of development, and I'll tell you a little bit more about all of these in a little bit. And we would like to call neurodiverse conditions rather than disorder, and acknowledge challenges instead of deficits, and apply the strength-based model across the entire spectrum of neurodiverse conditions. And the reason why we would like to emphasize that there are conditions and there are challenges, and shy away from disorder and deficits, because once you are labeling autism as a disorder and call all of those deficits, it's going to be very difficult to think that they have strengths. You would only be able to gravitate to understanding what they are challenged with, and but actually, if in the right setting, they may actually be able to demonstrate a lot of strengths. So that's the reason why we are emphasizing that we want to call the neurodiverse conditions more of a condition rather than disorder. The first component of the strength-based model is positive psychology, which is a field that was started by Martin Seligman and Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, and they defined the core of positive psychology as well-being, contentment, satisfaction. Flow is basically immersing oneself in an activity and get satisfaction and happiness out of it, as well as hope and optimism. Over the last 20-some years, there are more than 53 published definitions of positive psychology. But basically, these three come up top. And if you are to memorize 3 words from here, it's really about strengths, about fulfillment, and growth. There are different ways of really quantifying strengths. And one way that's developed by the group headed by Martin Seligman and University of Pennsylvania is the Values in Action Inventory of Strengths. And there are 5 major groups of strengths: emotional strengths, interpersonal strengths, intellectual strengths, strengths of restraint, and theological strengths. And for most people that are considered as neurotypical, they would have strengths that are represented by a number of these strengths that are listed here. And there is a study that quantified what are the signature strengths. The signature strengths are basically the most kind of represented strains for that person. So for an individual that, for example, if someone is rating open-mindedness, humor, love, kindness, and fairness as their signature strains, that means these these characteristics really describe them as a person. And indeed, for this particular study by Kirchner, the signature strains are represented under emotional strains, humor and love, interpersonal strains, fairness and kindness, and one of those intellectual strains. And Kirchner also did the same. So basically, compare the neurotypical people with autistic individuals, and you can see that there's a lot more emphasis in identifying themselves, autistic individuals identifying themselves as having strains in creativity, open-mindedness, love of learning, more so than neurotypical people. And there's less of emotional strains. There's also this fairness that was represented in neurotypical individuals that's showing up in autistic individuals. And in addition to these four, there's also authenticity. That's one of the signature strains of autistic people. So the next slide is about positive psychiatry. So positive psychiatry, as the way to illustrate it here is to contrast with traditional psychiatry. And both traditional psychiatry and positive psychiatry are important. It's really for different purposes in some ways. Positive psychiatry has a focus of focusing on positive attributes and strains, and protective factors and neuroplasticity. Traditional psychiatry is about pathology, what's wrong, and what are the risk factors. Positive psychiatry is about, or if I go one step back, is in traditional psychiatry, the way to treat is to treat symptoms by short-term psychotherapy and medications. However, positive psychiatry is about using psychoeducational interventions to enhance positive attributes, and that can increase well-being and growth. So this way will help us to make mental health something that we are nourishing and trying to keep the mental health to be in a good state, and this can last for a lifespan. And in traditional psychiatry, their function is really more about treating the symptoms that are really making the person not able to function. So if we are able to practice more of the positive psychiatry, then we're going to have less people, hopefully, to be at the point that they actually need to take medications or short-term psychotherapy. The last component of the strength-based model is the triggering 7 factors of development, and they include developing competence, managing emotions, moving through autonomy toward interdependence, developing mature interpersonal relationships, establishing identity, developing purpose, and developing integrity. These are basically the developmental tasks that adolescents and young adults have to achieve in order to become a full adult. When we are looking at these 7 vectors, we ask a few questions. What do neurodiverse individuals do to achieve these developmental milestones? And how can people in the ecosystem, in the employment setting, it will be the co-workers, the supervisors, the executives that can change the environment. How can these people help neurodiverse individuals to increase their chance to achieve these developmental milestones? So in other words, how can these people make the environment more neurodiversity friendly? And the third question is, what about the mental health providers? How can we help neurodiverse individuals achieve these developmental milestones? So if we are putting all the different pieces together and integrate the strength-based model and as applied to neurodiverse individuals, one way of thinking about it is we need to raise their awareness of personal strengths, increase their trust in personal ability, and help them learn to engage in relationships and increase their self-satisfaction through success. And this way, we will be able to keep the person be able to focus on their strengths and be able to have a more positive identity about themselves. And they can potentially be moved away from the negativity and immobility, such as anxiety, depression, and executive dysfunction. So now I'm going to switch gears to talk about how we apply the strength-based model of neurodiversity in the Stanford Neurodiversity Project. The Stanford Neurodiversity Project is one of the special initiatives of the psychiatry department at Stanford. It is also in line with the IDEAL initiative, which stands for Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Access in a Learning Environment, which is one of the main initiatives in the university. There are a few objectives that we have. The first is the most important. We want to establish a culture that treasures the strengths of neurodiverse individuals and empower neurodiverse individuals to build their identity. And this way, if they have a positive identity, that can help them enhance their long-term skills of daily living throughout their lifespan. In the beginning of this project, we were focusing on Stanford. So we had the goal of attracting talented neurodiverse individuals to study at Stanford, as well as coming to Stanford to study. And very quickly, we also include all the partnering organizations for this objective. So we are helping not only Stanford, but also the organizations that work with us. We like to train talented individuals to work with the neurodiverse population and disseminate the model as widely as possible. Ultimately, we want to maximize the potential of neurodiversity, not only for the neurodiverse people, but for all of us, because neurodiverse people have so much to bring to the table. On one hand, we are really person-centered, wanting to focus on what can make the environment more neurodiversity friendly for the neurodiverse individual. On the other hand, we need to really help the people that are in the ecosystem so that we identify the people that around neurodiverse individuals, the family, the friends, mentors, therapists. In the educational setting, teachers, coaches, classmates, roommates, they can all make the immediate environment more neurodiversity friendly. And also in the larger circle, the school officials and the school community can also contribute. In the employment setting, similarly, the supervisors, job coaches, colleagues can make the immediate environment more neurodiversity friendly, and the executives can make policies that can be neurodiversity friendly as well. And the rest of the work community and other supporting communities can also contribute. So after identifying all these groups, they are all stakeholders. We created a few initiatives. One is neurodiversity awareness and education. The second is neurodiversity at work and wellness, and neurodiversity independent living skills initiative. I'm going to talk about only a couple of those today for the sake of time. But we basically have um, a number of programs that are all relevant for people in the employment setting, in the education setting, at the high school level, as well as in the higher education level. It won't be possible to have this project to be covering so many things without a large group of dedicated people, including faculty members and students and staff members. So I'm just acknowledging all of them, and especially Dr. Laura Roberts, who is the executive sponsor of this project. One of them, the first things that we have done in the last 5+ years now is to increase awareness through the special interest group of for neurodiversity. In November 2017, we had our first monthly meeting. We thought we are going to only have a few of us sitting in the room. In the first meeting, we had 22 people, and gradually our group increased in size, and there are more people coming to learn about neurodiversity. And now we have over 1,200 people in our special interest group. And every month on the first Monday, the third Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific time, we have this special interest group that talk about a topic related to neurodiversity. It can be related to employment, it can be related to higher education support, or college, the K-12 support. It can also be related to mental health support. So if you are interested in coming to one of these meetings, please scan this QR code and sign up to be attending the special interest group, and we'll send you announcements along the way. Because this talk is really focused on neurodiversity in the workplace, I'm going to use the rest of the time talking about our Neurodiversity at Work program. We have 4 objectives in the Neurodiversity at Work program. Instead of reading it to you here, basically it is about supporting the employers and the neurodiverse individuals in both the job search process or recruitment process, as well as after onboarding during the first few months of the employment. And we collaborate with many organizations, including Google. And this is one of the articles that talk about our collaboration in Forbes and in their Google Cloud News, and also The Hill. Here are some of other employers within Stanford University, as well as outside Stanford University, who are our partners that have hired people on the autism spectrum and have successfully retained them. We work with probably another dozen or so organizations that are not listed because they they haven't hired anyone in our candidate registry just yet. Later on, we are going to have a larger group of organizations. So the Neurodiversity at Work program has two major pieces. One is the Neurodiverse candidate registry. We have over 800 people that are looking for, they are autistic individuals looking for work. And if they are job ready, then we'll try to find an opportunity that will be suitable for them. If they are not job ready, they will be recommended to do pre-employment training or internships, and then they will come back to us. On the other hand, we need jobs, and we collaborate with various different organizations, like what I showed you in the last slide. And they would have jobs that will be put in the job bank if they already have a neurodiversity friendly environment. If they don't have that environment, we will basically support them and help them to make their workplace more neurodiversity friendly. And we also have along the way different strategies that we help with the organizations and the neurodiverse individuals. So for neurodiverse individuals, in addition to helping them to find a job opportunity, we help with preparing for their interview and preparing for their hiring or onboarding, and the first 3 months after onboarding. And for the employer, we provide neurodiversity awareness training. Everything starts with awareness. And when there are managers that want to be working with us, then we will have a position consultation helping the managers to make their job description more neurodiversity friendly. And then we'll also train the rest of the team on best practice training, how they interview the candidates, as well as other assessments to make it more neurodiversity friendly. And if there is a good fit, when the employer thinks that there is a good candidate and they want to hire this person, then the next thing is to actually make sure that the workplace is neurodiversity friendly when they start work. A lot of the time, neurodiverse individuals can actually have very reasonable accommodations in the workplace, but because they are not implemented or not requested, they basically they don't exist for the neurodiverse individuals. And it's usually much too late when they talk about starting accommodations. And at that time, it's kind of either a moot point or it's not going to be very successful because of all the different things that have happened in making things hard for the team as well as the neurodiverse individual. So after onboarding, the employers also have training to help them with working with the autistic individual. So the neurodiverse individual has two support circles. One is the workplace support circle that has a team manager, the human resource manager, a team buddy, and also a neurodiversity at work mentor. And these individuals are supported by a coach that can in turn support the neurodiverse individual. We want to help fishermen to learn about how to fish and not to fish for them. So basically, we are making them understand the team, understand how to work with the neurodiverse individual. And also in parallel, we work with the neurodiverse individuals with a different coach. And sometimes in the second support circle, which includes personal counselor and family member, will also need to be participating so that the neurodiverse individual can be fully supported. So we developed curriculum for the neurodiverse individual. This is just an example of what it can look like in the 12 weeks. And also the employer, we also have a curriculum that's supporting them. So in summary, neurodiverse individuals have so much to offer society. They have specific challenges that can be overcome. We have developed the strength-based model to basically design ways to help neurodiverse individuals in a systematic way and a strength-based way. And with this, I'm going to just pose the question, how can we work together to maximize the potential of neurodiversity? You can join the special interest group. You can let us know about your interest in neurodiversity. And if you know anyone that is looking for employment and are neurodiverse, let us know. These are all more applicable to the people that are in United States at the moment. We are not able to provide assistance for people outside of United States. And if you do know people that want to be involved, let us know. By working together, we can make a difference to the neurodiverse community and beyond. And thank you for your attention. Here are some of the supporters and funders for our work.
Very good. Thank you, Lawrence, for this very informative lecture. I always learn something new. I hear you talk about this topic and also realize how many famous people and accomplished people have struggled with some level of challenges. So, and I like your continuum between Tesla and Elon Musk, so and putting them back to back. Very good. So I have a few questions here. First one, how do we know if someone has an invisible disability in the workplace?
Well, I think, first of all, it is not really the job of an average employee or a manager to make a diagnosis. I think if you kind of feel like someone may actually need help because of what they do, and you suspect that this person needs help, then maybe one thing is to offer something to this person and say, is there anything that I can help you with, and really not put the judgment on what the person is doing or not doing. But I would not say like detect how whether or not that person has a neurodiverse condition or not. I know I'm not answering this question because I kind of feel like if you are not a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a mental health provider, it's okay to not know. But I think it's also good if you kind of detect that you are in, you detect that someone may need help, just offer help.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I think the focus is on trying to identify ways to help this individual either directly or indirectly. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next question. The observation was made that the individual, neurodiverse individual, they have sensitivity to auditory stimuli. It would be interesting to measure this profile. Are you aware of any work that's being done to assess hypersensitivity to auditory stimuli or hypersensitivity in general in, let's say, the autism patient population or in neurodiverse population in general?
Mhm. So as a lot of you may know that sensory differences is one of the diagnostic criteria for autism, is a main characteristic of autism. So it is very common for neurodiverse individuals, especially autistic individuals, to be hypersensitive to noise, as well as other sensory modalities. Or sometimes they can be hyposensitive to a particular sensory modality. So to characterize the auditory hypersensitivity, there are some rating scales that people use to basically ask the person. Dr. Harden and I actually had used that SPQ before.
Yes.
It's rather subjective to ask the person if they are struggling with the or having the sensitivity to noise and so forth. There are also some researchers that are basically focusing on the objective way of measuring how sensitive they are. And this is not my focus of research, but I'm aware of some more objective way of measuring the sensitivity. And but I would say a more practical thing is that if someone is telling you that he's bothered by noise, then he's bothered by noise.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, along these lines, something with regard to hypersensitivity, while most of the research has been done in autism, people have reported and we have reported that hypersensitivity or sensory issues can be observed in several other disorders. It's very common in ADHD, it's very common in anxiety, it's very common in intellectual disability, in some of the neurogenetic disorders. So anyway, having hypersensitivity to auditory stimuli or hypersensitivity to stimuli is not only seen in autism, but also you can see it in other disorders, and mostly in neurodiverse individual. If we think about the ADHD individual with anxiety, so it's not surprising that hypersensitivity to noise is common. Okay, thank you. Now we have a question that was translated. It's basically asking you about all the work that you've been doing, Lawrence. So it's about employment by companies in terms of how do we motivate a company to strive to create a neurodiverse workforce?
Yeah, that's a very difficult question. A lot of the time, I think it depends on the company's philosophy. But the large companies, for example, they need to be responsible for their shareholders. They need to make sure that they are financially sustainable, and they also want to have a good image to the public. So it depends on what the company cares about. What I came to realize is that you really cannot force anyone to do anything that they are not signed up for. because it's going to be completely an uphill battle that usually will go nowhere. But if the organization have some champions that can that have vested interest for whatever reason, sometimes some executives have uh, children on the autism spectrum, or they know someone that's affected by it, and they are passionate about the topic. That's usually the reason why they are productive collaborations on the neurodiversity initiative. So if you are going to try to do something, it will be good to start off with thinking that there are like two major ingredients that are very important. One is about uh, the grassroots effort of the organization, whether or not there are employee resource groups that are focused on autism or neurodiversity or other disability-like groups. So if there is a organization within, like a group that's within that company, uh, that may be a good start already, because they are most likely going to be supportive. Um, and if there is no such group, then maybe start a group. That's going to be a start as well. Everything has to start from small to pilot and so forth. And the other thing is to identify any executives that, so I told you like there are two things, two ingredients. The second ingredient is to have some executive that would be supporting the idea. Without executives supporting the idea, it's going to be difficult to make it happen. So basically, all of these things take a long time to do. And even the executives that I have spoken with, executives in really huge companies, and even they are like really senior people in the organization. They cannot start the program because the company is too large. So even the very senior executives, they need time to actually know that there is something, a pathway that they also need to help at this kind of at the top level. But and the bottoms up level is also a way to get the data so that when the time is right, the organization will be able to have the support.
Very good. Kind of a related question, a little bit different. Do you have any thoughts on how to include the neurodiverse individual in the workforce in a war zone? And so that's part number one. Like, think about Ukraine. And the second one is there a role in the military for the neurodiverse individuals?
Mhm. Yeah, so that's a very interesting question. Actually, in Israel, the military in Israel has the most elaborate recruitment for autistic individuals in the world. They hire a couple of hundred autistic people per year.
Mm.
So definitely it's been thought about before. Actually, in the United States government, there are also talks about autistic individuals. I've talked to the U.S. Army, their research lab. I've talked with other federal agencies that are related to intelligence, and they are interested because people on the autism spectrum see patterns that other people don't see. So because of that, it is very highly valued. And there are organizations that are in Australia that focus on cybersecurity, and their entire group of autistic individuals, they all do cybersecurity because they detect patterns that others don't as easily. So I think in the war zone, it could be exactly that. Like they may be able to to see things that are different, kind of like Alan Turing. In Alan Turing is the person that created the first digital computer, and the way that he cracked the Enigma, the encryption machine that the Germans use, is is by a novel method that nobody used. There was no digital computer at that time, and so basically it is all about like there are some niche thing that autistic people can do that um, that can clearly be supporting the military, and it's been already been going on in other countries.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Along the lines of the workforce and inclusive workforce, any thoughts about to autistic to parents of autistic kids or autistic parents of autistic kids, how to build an inclusive workforce for those who are in high need or high support in the high support group?
Yeah. So I recently got a grant funding from the California Department of Developmental Services. Basically, they fund all the regional centers of California, and the regional centers in turn support people on the autism spectrum, and a lot of them have intellectual disability. And basically, our approach is to try to help the job coaches who will work with the people with intellectual and developmental disability. And we are basically creating a curriculum, developing a curriculum in the next few months, and we'll basically do a trial of that in 6-7 months for the new curriculum. So the same curriculum will also be used to help the parents and the employers, so that everyone is going to be on the same page. So so it's not only the people on the autism spectrum with less needs, like the so-called high functioning people. It is really the entire spectrum that we are trying to be increasing the capacity for any support people that can create more opportunities for employment.
Okay, very good. Thank you. We're getting more questions. As you'd imagine, this is a very interesting topic. The next one is related to disclosure of a neurodiverse condition or a diagnosis in the workplace. Like sometimes we do interviews. What are the thoughts about disclosing that the individual is neurodiverse, or they have ADHD, or they have autism?
So disclosure is a personal decision, but I would also say that the most important thing is safety. If you feel like your the workplace is not safe to disclose the diagnosis, then don't. But if you know that the workplace is neurodiversity friendly and people actually have mechanisms that can support you, then disclosure is going to be potentially helpful for you. But still, it's going to be a personal decision. Some people still don't want to, even though it is safe, because some people, there's an identity about a person. Some people want to have a fresh start in a new place, and they don't want to have a diagnosis to be attached to their work opportunity. So ultimately, it is the choice of the person. But if there is good support in the workplace, and you can be confident about that, it may be actually a very good thing to disclose, because after that you get all the support.
Yeah, and it's definitely a good point regarding feeling safe first to be able to disclose, and very often people go out of their way to help to accommodate and provide support so the individual is successful. Okay. A question related to individuals like neurodiverse individuals who worked in the army, and how to facilitate them coming back to the non-military life, to the civil life. Any thoughts or experience about that?
No, I think this is a very complex topic that's really not something that I have experience with. What I can say is that in general, neurodiverse or not, it is difficult to come back, and it is really more of a societal support for all the people that have contributed in protecting your country. So I think that it's important to acknowledge their contributions, and I mean, at the basic level, it's important to acknowledge them, and the other thing is to provide opportunities to them, and it's easy to say than easy to do. I think Dr. Harden is not on the panel now.
Yeah. Looks like he maybe lost connection.
Yeah.
But I'll go ahead and ask, I think we have time for about one more question. And someone asked how to cope with refusals for applying by applying for a job. So when you get a refusal or a denial, especially for neurodiverse specific people.
I
Well,
apologize. Sorry, I apologize, but I got disconnected. Sorry about that. Okay, go ahead, Lawrence.
Yeah, so the question is how to cope with refusals by applying for a job. And well, frankly speaking, what I have to say is that applying for a job, especially for the first time, it's going to be hard, because most jobs would require you to have some kind of relevant experience, especially if you want to be doing something that you want to do. So the second thing is that most people need to apply for a lot of jobs in order to get one. So it is not just the neurodiverse individuals that are going to get refusals. Most people get refusals. Almost all people will get refusals by or rejections from companies. So when you get rejections, you need to know that this is really part of the process. And the most important thing is you know that you are prepared for each step. Like if you're writing a letter, a cover letter, and writing your resume, it's important that it is really relevant for the job, and it is also well written. And sometimes neurodiverse individuals that are just starting, they don't really have the experience. So it's good if they can seek help so that they get support on how to actually walk this path in job search. Right now, for the most part, the society is really built by neurotypical individuals. So the human resource process is very much not neurodiversity friendly in general. So it's important to get some help in the beginning, and don't get frustrated about like one or two rejections, because everyone got the first one or two rejections usually. um, and be persistent.
Great. Thank you so much. So I think we have a time for maybe one or two more. We have a question from someone who recently moved to the USA from Ukraine, but I think this is a good question for most people. So they were just curious if you had any recommendations of specific transition to adulthood programs or any inclusive college programs in the US, or if there's an area that is more progressive in this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Transition to college. That's a good question. So there are various different programs. I think there's one called College Internship Program, or CIP. I think they are all over the country. That's a group that has done some work in this area. The other one is well, actually, Landmark College is a college that is a small college in the Northeast, in the New England area. Landmark College is basically focused on the neurodiverse population. So so because of that, transitioning in is going to be very easy, because they make it really neurodiversity friendly. So you don't really even need the transition program. They would take care of you. There may be others, but these two at the top of my mind right now.
Very good. Any more question, Ali? Very good. Okay. So this will conclude this very informative session on neurodiversity in the workplace. I want to thank everyone for their attendance. Thank you, Ali, for coordinating. Thank you, Dimitri, and Irena for doing the interpretation. And most importantly, I want to thank Dr. Fung for his time and all the information that he shared with us today. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Very good. Bye-bye. Thanks again, Lawrence.
Thank you, Anthony.
Okay.